37 states plus Washington, D.C. require nonprofits to register before they can solicit donations. And if you're raising financial support in multiple states, there's a good chance you'll need to register in each of them, or some of them, or none of them. It's important not to under-register. It's also a smart thing to not over-register. Let's jump into this for a closer look. Hi, I'm Greg McRae, founder and CEO of Foundation Group, and welcome to 501c3 University. Today's topic really confuses people, and that is multi-state charitable solicitation registration. Do I register or do I not register? It's fair to say that the rules they're a mess. It's a 38-state hodgepodge, all with their own thresholds and regulations. But given the nasty consequences of being out of compliance on this, it's just too important to not get this right. I'll mention this here too. If you'd like to know which states require registration and those that don't, we'll put a link in the description below to our webpage that outlines every state's regulations on the matter. Let's start out by talking about the most straightforward requirement, and that is registering with your home state's division of charities. Now, by home state, I mean the state that your nonprofit is incorporated in. Now, assuming that you're based in one of the 38 jurisdictions that require registration, it's a no-brainer. You need to register prior to soliciting your first donation. And don't get hung up on what is or isn't a solicitation. In most every state in the country now, they define revenue generation of any sort to be the result of a solicitation, so it's best not to try to parse it. If your home state is a registration state, just get registered. One of the benefits that comes with registering in your home state is that most other registration states recognize your primary registration as giving you a safe harbor, meaning that you won't have to register in the other place simply because you received an unsolicited contribution from their state. In other words, if Alice in Washington State hears what your North Carolina charity is doing, goes on your website, unsolicited by you, and gives $100, that does not necessarily kick in Washington State registration requirements. Now swap Washington for California, though, and that safe harbor doesn't apply. I told you this was confusing. This safe harbor is a result of a set of guidelines governing electronic giving called the Charleston Principles. Now, we really don't have time to get into detail on the Charleston Principles in this video. We'll include a link in the description below for more details on that. Plus, in an upcoming video, we'll dive a bit deeper into navigating these safe harbor rules. Now, let's look at what I call under-registering. Under-registration is a fairly easy concept to grasp, and it simply means your fundraising activities are expansive enough to trigger a multi-state registration requirement, but you're not registered everywhere you need to be, hence under-registration. The important thing here is to not overlook the requirements of the states beyond the one that you're incorporated in. It can be very tempting to think out of sight, out of mind, or simply that since you're based in Tennessee, the state of Georgia really isn't going to be paying attention to the donors that you are contacting in Atlanta. Well, you might get away with that, or more likely you won't. The consequences of fundraising in a registration state in which you are not registered can range from very expensive fines to having your activity in that state prohibited by the Attorney General's office. You don't want that. The vast majority of nonprofits that we work with have a registration requirement in their home state. Now, more than half have at least one other state that they have to comply with as well. And we have many clients with significant nationwide fundraising activity. Well, that generates requirements for registration in all of the 38 jurisdictions. It's absolutely essential for your nonprofit to get registered and stay compliant wherever it is required of you. I think I've sufficiently made the point about not being under-registered. I also mentioned over-registration at the beginning of this video. So what is over-registration? Simply put, what I'm calling over-registration is registering for fundraising in a state where it really isn't necessary for you to do so yet. Now, we see this problem far less than we do with under-registering, but it still happens. And when it does, it usually takes one of two forms. The first scenario is overestimating your compliance burden. Now, this usually comes in two forms itself: not understanding the rules and playing it too safe. We often see version 1 happen when a nonprofit feels it needs to register in a state simply because they have a donor who lives there and gives regularly. Now, this can get tricky because for some states, that's true. I'm looking at you, California. For most states, however, the existence of an out-of-state donor doesn't necessarily trigger a registration requirement, so long as you're not actively soliciting them to give again, and assuming you are registered in your home state. As for playing it safe and registering all over the country, well, that just becomes an unnecessary administrative burden and cost to your nonprofit. The second scenario we often see with over-registration is someone following bad advice, sometimes from an unscrupulous service provider. We've seen some stuff, I'll tell you. We've worked with lots of nonprofits that engage us for charitable solicitations registration services after having worked with another supposedly professional company. Some misinformed vendors adopt a play-it-too-safe approach and have their clients over-register almost as a defense mechanism. Sadly, the worst cases we've seen, however, have been nonprofits who are hard-sold and manipulated through fear tactics to register in states where it was totally unnecessary for them to do so. This is highly unethical, and unfortunately, it's something we've seen a lot of. Understanding your real compliance requirements is essential to the success of your nonprofit. When it comes to fundraising or charitable solicitations registration, under and over compliance is equally undesirable. Register everywhere you need to and nowhere else. Hey, this stuff is ridiculously complicated. There's 38 places and they all do it differently. If you believe that you have a multi-state compliance burden for charitable solicitations, figuring it out on your own can be pretty hard. So check out the link below to our webpage that deals with these questions and let us know if we can help. That's it for this video. You know the spiel. If you liked it, please click the like button. It really helps us out. We appreciate that so much. Subscribe if you haven't already, and click the little bell icon to be notified of new content when we produce it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.